Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today is my guest is Ellie Savoy, and before I introduce her, though, I really just wanted to take a moment to share with you what my wish is for you and what you to get out of this Masterclass Summit series, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Body. I'm hoping for little nuggets from all the speakers that we have, that you take this away, take this with you. Choose one thing that will help you move forward, to progress in your life, to shed the things that you're thinking about that are standing in your way. So please open your hearts and open your minds to trying something that one of our guest speakers has, offered you in this gift basket of wonderful points of view and opportunities. And today, my guest is Ellie Savoy, and I know you're going to get plenty of nuggets from Ellie. Let me read a little bit about Ellie's background here. Ellie is the author of the #1 international best-selling book, Stop Dieting, Start Living. I absolutely love that title. She's a board-certified holistic health coach, and her mission is to help yo-yo dieters get off the dieting merry-go-round permanently, bravo, and discover the simplicity and joy of investing in their most precious asset, a healthy mind, body, and soul. She helps them go from struggle and excuses to freedom and passion. Well, bravo on that. Welcome today, Ellie. How are you?
Hi there, Lucia. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. I have to say that the uncanny resemblance to Meryl Streep. Do you get that a lot?
Oh, I have heard that. Yes, actually. I'll take it.
I love it. I was just like, oh, I'm going to interview Meryl Streep today. No, thank you. And I think if we just get into actually what brought you to your path, and then you can, sort of tell us what led you to even writing this book, because I love the title of that. So what brought you to your path?
Great question. Well, I'll kind of reverse engineer. So in 2011, I was told I had 2 uterine fibroids. And I was given 4 options by my gynecologist. 3 involved surgery, one of which was a hysterectomy, and the other one was to do nothing. And I knew that I certainly did not want to have surgery. And I knew that I needed to make some changes in my life. And I felt like after I got over the initial shock of like, oh my God, what are these things in my body? I did the research, and I decided that I would not have surgery because my life wasn't being threatened. I wasn't being silly about it. I wasn't not going to do something that was going to jeopardize my life. But I said I'm going to do something. And so I went on a hormone rejuvenation program for 3 cycles. It's homeopathic. And in that, there were certain requirements. One was to eat as much organic food as possible. And I went, the full Monty, to not drink alcohol for those 3 months, and which I did. And to decide what I would let go of physically and emotionally so that I could heal my body. And there was, it was an investment. I don't look at this as an expense, because it's much cheaper to invest in our health than it is to try and cure some disease or heal the body after the fact. So I did all of that, and in the process I realized that I actually liked slowing down my life and taking care of myself. But so keep me on track here, because I might go off on a tangent.
Yeah. Well, maybe let me ask you, if I can interrupt. What made you make the decision to commit to yourself? I mean, sometimes I like, some people may be saying, oh, she could choose to do nothing. Of course, then the prognosis would likely not be well. But I find that, we end up being reactionary instead of proactive. And I feel like you chose to be proactive.
Right. Yeah.
How did you come to that?
Well, in 2008, my mum died. She had been ill for 8 years. She had had a stroke, and her health was never the same again. You know, it was kind of like a downward spiral for all those years. And then when I went back home to England to go to, you know, to be with my family, while at the funeral home, I remember the saying, you can't take it with you when you die. Mm-hmm. And when I saw my mum, well, her body there, it was like it really sort of hit me fair, you know, straight on that, oh my goodness, everything that was important to her is not going with her. Mm. So it got me sort of thinking on a more deeper inward journey. Mm. And then 21 months later, my dad died very suddenly of a heart attack. And so it was one of the biggest shocks of my life, and went back over to England. And then this time, of course, it was different because we had a house, our family home, to deal with, and right. We had to make the funeral arrangements. My dad took care of everything before. Right. And that was really two big wake-up calls for me, not in terms of my genes, but in terms of, why am I here? What is my life about? It can't really be about stressed out and running around like a headless chicken trying to get everything done. So that played into, if that hadn't have happened, perhaps I wouldn't have made the decision I did in 2011. Yeah. Because sometimes, you know, we get these wake-up calls, we get these things that happen that can be a gift in disguise. Right. But sometimes we need to get hit over the head a few times before we actually take the bait, you know, and say, hey, I need to do something. And I think we all can avoid change because we feel like it's too difficult. We feel like Right. It's too much work. It's like it's easier to do what we know, even though we know it could be hurting us. Yeah. And so I realized that it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be because it was something that I wanted.
Key. And that's yeah. Key right there. I just have to stop you. That's key right there. Because when you want something bad enough and you're uncomfortable bad enough is when you say, okay, what I can make some changes here, even if it's scary. And sometimes, people's enough is different. And in that, yeah. I think it was interesting that you said, looking at your mom, she's not taking it with her. Like that thought was even in your head, that she's not taking it with her because it was so significant to you. And then so quickly, and I'm so sorry for your loss, by the way, as and then here's another paradigm, trauma that happens, that you can either go down one path or the other. And you chose to say, you know what, we're not going to take it with us. What am I doing here? Not everybody gets to have that opportunity, or more, if you get the opportunity and ignore it, because I think that they are all meant for us, blessings in disguise, if you will. And you chose to shift it differently. So is that also in line with the philosophy of your book? And
yes, actually, of course, I didn't know that I would end up teaching this or
right.
Supporting other women in this way. But when my life had changed so much for the positive, because I had embraced this as a lifestyle. And when I looked back at how I got to where I am, it could have been more than what the basis of my book, these 5 foundations. It all happened to begin with P. The first one is priorities. Mm-hmm. I made myself a priority, and they all lead in, and they can all be sort of reversed, but they all fit nicely together. I stopped pretending. For example, I only had 6 cookies, when I ate the lot, or something like that. I stopped, and so that's the excuses part as well. I switched my perception about I don't have time, it costs too much to eat healthy, fill in the blank. And I had a plan. I stopped flying by the seat of my pants. I mean, at one point I would be like literally running through the supermarket from one aisle to the next because I didn't think I had the time to be in there. Right. Or I wouldn't take out something for dinner from the freezer. And I'm not talking packaged foods. I've never eaten that way. Well, no, I shouldn't say I never have. Years ago I did, but I didn't know even as much then as I do now.
Sure.
But none of those like microwave dinners. I've never done that. And then, so most people spend more time planning a holiday, a vacation, or, a dinner party than they do what they're going to eat today and tomorrow.
Right.
And so the planning piece is critical. And then passion, because when we have passion for something, we're going to do it. It's not about patience. And in my book, I give a couple of examples, like if we want to learn to play an instrument or learn a foreign language, first of all, there's this passion, there's this desire.
Right.
And then we have the patience to learn. So once we get this passion for, this kind of like a zest for feeling well, because as we age, things are going to change. I think our society sets us up to think that we don't have any control over it, that we can't feel well when we're as a woman, post-menopause, perimenopausal, and then postmenopausal. Oh, it's the worst time of your life. You're going to fall apart. You won't sleep. You'll wake up in a pool of sweat.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never be the same again.
Yeah, they tell you what you're going to feel, tell you what it's going to, yeah.
Yeah, and if we buy into that and we believe that, the mind is very powerful. But I was of the mind that because my mum, she had a terrible time in menopause. In fact, she started getting hot flashes when she was 41. And she had a full hysterectomy because she had uterine cancer. She had a full hysterectomy when she was 51, which I'm 52 at this point. And so, that was all there too. And I had said, I don't want to have a terrible time in menopause. I don't want to lose my uterus. I mean, we can live without them, but I just really want to be as intact, as possible.
And did you feel, to interrupt you, did you feel because your mother had this lineage that you would also have the same lineage?
No, I didn't think that way. I thought that, because as I've learned along the way, I heard somebody say that genes load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger.
Say that again.
Yeah, the genes load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger.
Absolutely.
And too many people I've come across just sit back on their laurels and say, well, we've got this in my family, and this one had cancer, and so it becomes the reason why we don't make changes. So we don't become proactive all too often. But I was at the opposite. I was like, you know what? I want to be healthy. And we live in this modern world is stressful. People are very busy. We're pulled in many directions. Mm-hmm. So we can't avoid stress necessarily. And I don't believe in managing stress, because why do we want to manage something we don't want in the first place? But to be mindful, to take those moments when we start to feel overwhelmed or we start to feel a bit unhinged, to have that awareness that things are running away from us a bit, and we need to come back in and say, take a breath, and that, we can just sort of shift gears a bit and come back to this body of ours is our most precious asset. And without it functioning properly, what is there really? Because we can't enjoy life so much if we're in pain, if we're worried about what we're dealing with, if we, have all these doctor's appointments and surgeries lined up. It just kind of dampens things.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you think about your body, this is where I live. I mean, I live in this place, but I live here. I've been making that sort of shift in the way I think of it, that way, that, take care of where you live. And especially, I think that that's what you start feeling, that as you age and progress in getting older, that's when things start to become, maybe I should be paying attention to this now. And it's never too late. That's what I want to say. I mean, I love that when you've, nipped it in the bud, if you will, early on, you get to this place, and at least you can be thankful that you made that decision to change that. Because I bet you at the end of the day, people want to know that I can live a longer life because I've earned it in how I've eaten and what I do. To that whole mind, body, spirit is very critical. I feel in that the mind, the body, and the spirit lines up to move you forward. Have you found, what would you say is the biggest challenges for people to crack the code, if you will? What have you found is the biggest challenges that people are facing with making these decisions?
Time is a really big one.
Mm.
And we all have the same amount of time per day.
Right.
But we can choose how we spend that time. Now, some people might, get a charge out of that and feel some irritation, because they're like, they might say, well, I work 10 plus hours a day and I have a family to take care of, and I'm not discounting any of that, and I don't know everybody's particulars.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are laid up in the hospital or in bed at home, somebody has to take care of those things to keep the household running or to manage the day-to-day details. So it's better to not put ourselves in that position where we're kind of taken out because we're not feeling so well, and be more proactive so we can avoid that. So all too often, a bit like, if you say you think you've had 6 cookies when you've had like the whole packet, that oftentimes when it comes down to time, we can find somewhere where we can make some shifts. Social media today is a big drain on people's time.
Yeah.
And so, it's all a choice. So if somebody was really tracking 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there on social media, half an hour reading something online, and you added all that up, it could be 2+ hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
That is a decent chunk of time where we can be spending that in a more productive way that's going to pay us dividends. It's like an investment, putting our money in the right stocks, so that we get a return on our investment. And it's the same with our bodies. Even though our bodies are a chemistry lab, I do like to use the fact that think of your body like a bank account, but only in terms of deposits, because if you don't make a deposit to the bank, and you keep spending, it's going to go into overdraft at some point. And the body is no different. It's just going to get more and more depleted and not be there to do the things that we want to do.
Yeah, and then we worry about it. I'll worry about it when that happens. And then, because it's interesting that the tape that constantly plays with that, to your point before, you said, it's going to be too hard and all of that. Because I think, so, I'm wondering if people out there are thinking, well, I don't have these big grand things that happened in her life that made her make this big decision, and she took off and running on that. I don't know what I want to start with. I don't know that I can start with it, and here we go. And I know we've been sharing, pull out what it is that's, like the tape that you're playing in your head. And I think as it relates to dieting, and maybe you could talk about why diets don't work, even in the thinking of how we define it, right? I remember the doctor said to me once, went in there for something, I don't know, my stomach was bothering me. He says, well, what's your diet? And I went, I'm not on one. I should be on one. Shouldn't I be on one? And he looked at me and he was like, no, that means, what do you eat? He says, what do you eat? And I was like, oh, I was so young. It immediately caused this reaction in me, like I was being judged. And it bothered me that I felt that way too, and feeling stressed out about it all. And I think that we've gotten, to your point before about media, I think we've gotten ourselves into, what we should look like, how it should function, that it's going to be hard or not going to be hard, and then afraid to take the first step. Well, so in helping me take that first step, because I feel like, everything will start to line up, right? So in helping me to take that first step to a healthy lifestyle, like, how did you make it easy for you? Because like now it's like, eat that healthy food. How did you make it easy?
Well, it starts with taking the first step. We tend to have this all or nothing approach to making changes. And in my book, I refer to it as the all or nothing syndrome, because
Yeah.
me, like many other people, would say, right, Monday is everything's going to change. I'm getting rid of all this junk, and or it's New Year's Day, sometime always in the future, and we set ourselves up often for failure because we're looking at it in the wrong way. Because when we try to remove everything, we're not ready to remove everything.
Right.
So it's about crowding out. So bringing more healthful things in will help us shift away from the stuff that's not supporting our health. So it's like it's doing it in reverse, but yet we're told, oh, count this, count that, don't eat this, don't eat that, instead of looking at it in a bigger sense that this is not something that's short term. This is for the rest of our lives. This is an investment in ourselves. This is something that we're going to grow into as in when we're ready to take the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
But like a baby, a toddler, somebody, a young child that is learning to walk, it's exciting for them when they realize that they can get up and take the first step. They might fall down and cry, but they get back up from where they are. They don't say, well, I'm going to wait till next Monday now because I just fell down and off the wagon, and so I have to wait till the future to take this next step.
Right.
So it could be, let's say, we get up in the morning and we have all these great intentions of doing the best we can for ourselves, and by noon something's happened. Well, okay, just the next time something goes in, maybe it's 2:00, just make a healthier choice.
Right.
You don't have to wait and that might be Tuesday, so you don't have to wait till the following Monday. It takes time to make changes, but the more we want it, the easier it can be.
Again, it goes back to that big want. And I think the all or nothing that all or nothing thinking got in my way so many times, because it was like, and I kept thinking, even with the time suck, so I'm not doing anything to help motivate me, or even make one little change. If I wasn't making all the big changes, I made none. And yet, even though the time that if I could call it like this, waited to make that decision, to make all of those choices, I could have been making one choice, one change. And yet, so it seems so bizarre in thinking, but that's what was playing in my head. That if you can't do all of these, what I believed would help me lose the weight, make the changes in my life, whatever it is, we'll use weight right now because it could be for anything, then I would postpone everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, and so many people don't offer themselves an opportunity just to make that small change. How does that fit into my life? Is that because if the tape keeps playing that, well, I'm a big boned woman. I come from people who are always, and I'm using the F word this morning, fat. And so if my whole lineage is fat, I will be fat. My mother was fat, I will be fat. It is what it is. It's a phrase I can't stand. It just drives me crazy, because when you say it is what it is, it gives you the opportunity to just, quit on yourself. And in changing the behaviors and the habits, to your point about the baby, getting back up and trying again and giving it a different meaning. And I don't know that we offer enough of that to ourselves. Why do you think it's so difficult to change habits and behaviors and rituals, if you will? What have you come to find about that?
I think it's because we're looking at it in these big strides, like it has to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just these small steps. It's like, somebody who wants to climb a mountain and looking at the mountaintop before, oh my God, look how far away it is. Look how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
instead of just looking down and saying, well, let me put one foot in front of the other. And each step is going to get you to the top. So
Mhm.
when we look at over there, wherever there is, we're not focused here. And all those little steps add up to a lot.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be, it can be small things like, have some squeeze lemon in some water upon waking to help flush the body out and get rid of those toxins. It could be to have some water throughout the day. Most people, or many people, are very dehydrated
Yeah.
and they don't even realize it. And so, don't wait until you're really hungry to eat. Have a snack with you, take something with you. There's just so many ways to start
Really.
becoming conscious.
Mhm.
And even for somebody who has a young child, let's say it's a baby and they have to change the diaper, a woman will leave the house with the diaper bag and have everything that the child needs, but might not have something for herself, thinking, well, I'm going to be thirsty when I'm out and about, and I'm probably going to get hungry. But it's often never about ourselves,
Right.
because we're so used to making everybody else and everything else a priority over ourselves. And I'm not saying to ignore your child or your responsibilities, but kind of put yourself up there, either sort of equivalent, at the same place, or, beyond. Because if we're not here, who's going to deal with it all? Who's going to take care of children? So we really need to put our own oxygen masks on first, as they say on the plane, so we can help other people. But we tend to think of it in reverse. And this is why we're running ourselves ragged,
Right.
why we're worn out, why we don't feel well, oftentimes why we don't sleep well, and that can affect weight gain.
Mhm.
Hormones go out of balance, and then you get to like 50 and on, and so many women are thinking like their life is just horrid because they don't feel well, they don't like the way they look, they're not sleeping well, they've got the sweats, and it's like, well, this is how we were told it's going to be at
It
this
is
age,
what it is. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
so that's it until we get through it.
Right.
But if we make the changes and start to invest in ourselves and have a different attitude, so much can change.
Yeah, it's scary. And we try to protect ourselves, I think. That fear of failure. I'm going to try this again. I mean, I can't even tell you, right? That's what the yo-yo dieting is all about. I'm going to try this again. I often say that, you know, uh, who's the quote from? But if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's insanity.
Yeah.
I
Insanity. Yeah.
you always do what you always did. You always get what you always got. And
Yeah.
so, pay attention, and how's that working for you? Is that why you would say diets don't work, because of what we've been told, or what our expectations are? Why do you conclude that diets don't work?
Well, because they're often something that has a start date and an end date.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was certainly my experience, once we stop and go back to our old ways, which we usually do, um,
Right. The pull
it's
to the familiar, always, right?
it's back to square one again. And how many times can we really go down that road before we get to a point where we say, well, I'm either going to be overweight or permanently on a diet? We often think those are the two options. Instead, the more sensible option, and the one that I advocate, is to embrace getting on a healthier path. Because oftentimes when we're focused just on weight, we're not paying attention to our health. And so we're not paying attention to the whispers of something, you feel a little off, or your digestion hurts, or you haven't had a bowel movement for 3 days, or, it's all about, well, what do I weigh on the scale? I got to get on the scale.
Right.
Instead of being awake and aware of how we actually feel in terms of our health. So it is a big shift away from what we've been taught and continue to be taught, the dieting industry is worth billions of dollars. It never set me free. And I don't know anybody that it sets free.
Mm-hmm.
They do work when you're on them, as we know. But once you stop, it's like we're generally going to go back to what we used to do. And it just becomes, it's madness. It gets old. And I think women start to get very down and perhaps depressed because they don't like what they see in the mirror, and they don't like how they feel. And it does not have to be that way.
Right.
I really like just, oh my gosh, it just lights me up so much to see other women embracing a healthier path, focus on health, and the weight will take care of itself.
Yeah, walk away from the scale. I mean, you can't blame us. You're born, you get spit out from your mother, and hello, here's your baby, bam, on the scale.
Oh yeah, we start right there. I didn't think of it that way.
And we're off.
Yes. Ooh. Well, I was a small baby.
and it's crazy because sometimes body image, all of that starts to come up with, like I remembered a friend said to me, she told me how much she weighed. And I'm like, yeah, you're like almost 6 foot tall. Also, I said, like realize what, the height matters, you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people believe, oh, I'm not just overweight. I should be 7'4", something like that. But, whatever it's going to take to shift the way you're looking at, that's the point, obviously, of this summit, about change your thinking about things. Because if it's bothering you that much consistently, I'm always saying, how's that working for you? Choose one little thing, not so many.
Yeah.
We want to, I get it. That's why I'm looking at every day of this masterclass summit, that it's, well, let me try something that Ellie said today. Let me just be mindful of, what's in my pantry, what's in my refrigerator. What am I setting myself up for here? It was interesting. Somebody said to me, you really want to know what your priorities are, check out your checkbook. Look at what you spend your money on.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a really interesting way to look at that. And and it's the same thing here. If you really want to understand how to make those changes, start doing the cleanup here. Set yourself up knowing that if I see something, because the senses are so key. If I see something, smell something, it's triggering thoughts. It's triggering me. So if I can set up my environment in the best way possible, I'm at least halfway there, because I still have the thinking going on in that respect too. So
back to what you said about the refrigerator. Here in America, the fridges are so much bigger than they are in Europe in general.
We make everything big here in America.
Everything's bigger. So, you can put much more in them. And the doors, the shelves on the doors get packed with, salad dressings and drinks and all kinds of things that are loaded oftentimes with chemicals and harmful things. And there's so much in there, things get lost. So for me, things would be lurking in the back, and and they had gone off, the fresh produce, because we would be eating out on average like 4 times a week, because I couldn't be bothered to cook. I was full of excuses. But funny thing is, not funny, haha, but kind of cute in a way, is that I used to be I didn't really enjoy going grocery shopping because I was so busy, that I just try to fly around there and be in and out as quickly as possible. Right. But now I don't shop in supermarkets. I go to I'm fortunate that it takes me about 40 minutes there and 40 minutes back, but it's a 400-acre organic biodynamic farm. It's a farm store, a health food store. And but it's one of my favorite things to do every week. It's like a field trip. And so before I go, I just go through my fridge. I have my shopping list that I've been working on through the week. I don't just do it all in one shot all the time. And it takes a couple of minutes, if that, just to make sure, take out any, bits from my onions, let's say, and just to clean up the shelves. and just say, well, how many more of this do I need? And it's one of my favorite things to do. And that's kind of like when a good sign that you know you're invested, when you start to enjoy these things, when it feels such a pleasure and not a chore. You know, my husband and I, we don't eat out that often, certainly nowhere near like we used to, but we both like to cook. And now we're past these excuses and viewing life differently, that we want to invest in our health because we want to, you know, people are living longer these days, but are they living with quality of life, quality of years? So, you know, let's say I've got another 30 years. I know that they can be quality years,
Right.
while I'm investing in myself and making myself a priority. And you know, with my book, that's kind of the first foundation. They're all 5 P's, but the first one is the priorities.
Right.
And I refer to it like there's an order to things. Like when you're building a house, you don't just say, well, let me put the walls up out on the lawn, you know, and then I'll see if I can fit some concrete under it afterwards. You know, the solid foundation goes in first, and diets generally are not built on a solid foundation. And so this is another reason why they don't last. So when you're building a house, you know, you've got the foundation, which is the priorities. This is how I refer to it.
Sure.
The walls are like, that my second P, the pretending. You need something solid in order to be able to take the roof, right? You have to do things in a certain order. So you can't put on the roof until you've got the walls up. If you don't put the walls on a solid foundation, none of it's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about common sense, really. Thinking about things in a certain order. This is another reason why I don't think this, I don't really like the word detoxing, but cleansing. That if we try to go on a cleanse and it feels like deprivation, it's kind of like trying to put a roof on a house before you've got the walls up. It's just not going to work. And I know this because I tried it for years before I got onto a healthy path. I couldn't wait to be done with it. And then, of course, you know, I'd have my wine, I'd eat the chocolate. I couldn't wait for all the stuff I'd missed.
Right.
But now it's just an extension of an already healthy lifestyle, because I'm already doing those things as part of my, you know, weekly or daily living. So it's something it takes time. You know, a house isn't built in a week. This is not a weekend project. You know, this is not something that can go as quickly as people want, or it can take as long as people allow it to. But it's just however we are, where we are personally in our lives, on our journeys, and how much we really want to be well and happy.
What would be, and I love that you said it that way, because I think it is about let's step back and then really take a full panoramic view of what it is that I want in my life right now, because I can write it. I'm the author here. I can write whatever I want. I can make it look like anything that I want it to look like. So what is it that I want it to look like? And it doesn't have to be like everybody else's. It doesn't have to be what society has dictated. It just needs to help me move forward. And I think the crime is not investigating it for yourself on what it is you want, why you want it so badly, and then what changes could I make that I can make this look like I can do it. I think that ultimately that's what it is. If you get out of the diet mentality, if it's about weight loss, because, you know, ultimately, you know, I realized that my weight issues were about other things in my life as well. You know, it was, you know, if I tend to this, though, then I'll be happy. And then, you know, then you find at the end of the rainbow, you're still not happy. So what, you know, who sold me those beans, Jack? You know what I mean? So I think one step in the right direction and asking yourself what it is that you want, how important is this, and take one little step. Because what would be the one thing you can tell people today that they could take away today and start to make changes with? What would one simple thing be that you would suggest, Ellie?
Oh, it's hard to say one, but I think everything starts with a decision.
Yeah.
And I would love for everybody who watches this to say to themselves, that in this very moment, hearing these words, that they will say to themselves that they are a priority in their own life, that they matter on every level, and nobody else is going to do this for us. So let's, all band together and say we are a priority. Because I was somebody that used to put my hand up for everything. I like to give. I do quite a bit of volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
But everything I do now is, in my mind, it's sort of like a litmus test. Does it mean I can't go and get the groceries? Does it mean I won't have time to cook? Does it mean I won't have time to do my exercise classes that I like to do? And if I can't fit whatever it is around all these other things, I've learned to say no. And I have no problem with it anymore. I say it in a nice way. It's a 2-letter word. It's a complete sentence. And I just say, I'd love to, but I'm not able to at this time.
Mm.
And that's it, because I just was in the habit of saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
So if I can't continue to maintain my own health and happiness, then I'm just going to say, no, I can't do it. And we don't have to say sorry even. We just say, I'd love to, but it's just not at this time.
Right. It's amazing how the things will uncover when you start to, I remember the first time I said no to somebody and I was like,
Ooh, it's like, ooh, it's a bit scary.
You're going to call me again though, right? Yeah.
Ooh, it's like, what does it mean? Will they like us? What will happen to us if we
letting everybody down? Yeah. And then at the end of the day, I was letting myself down. I mean, that is what ends up happening, because I was paying attention to people who were saying no to me, and I was fine with it. I respected the fact that they respected themselves enough,
right,
that they knew that this wasn't going to fit into my life. And sometimes I watched that, like how easily they would be able to say no, but it said to me, you respected yourself enough.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I say that this might not be easy, but you don't have to make it hard. We don't have to make this hard just to make one change.
Exactly. I say it's simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. But easy is a very subjective word, and so is difficult, because it's how we perceive it.
Right.
It's how we view it. It's going to be difficult if we think it's going to be difficult.
Right.
But if we switch, our mindset and become aware, as you say, of those mental tapes that are playing all day long half the time, that we can start to catch that, and then we can start to be more present, and then we start to make the changes. As I said, it's not a race, but the more we do, it's like going to the gym. If we haven't been in a while, it's not going to be so easy at first. Things are going to ache a bit more. It's
you'll feel sore. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then the more we do it, the more we start to see the benefits and the results, and then we're more likely to want it more. Same with making healthy choices. It could be, unplugging from technology and listening to some meditative music before going to sleep. But so many people are just going from their devices to the bed, or the devices are in the bed with them.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to get a good sleep very often when we haven't taken the time to unwind. It's like a child who's playing and, really excited until the minute they go to bed.
Right.
Well, they're not going to sleep as well if they're all wired up,
Right.
So,
yeah, and every parent will say that. Don't wire my kid up. Don't give him sugar. Yeah, all of that.
So it's the same with us. We need to come down a bit, and that can be another good step to take, even if we're not doing it every night, but just start somewhere.
Yeah, I think even just paying attention to your behaviors right now, just, if you can be aware of everything that you do, and just for the investigation of it all. Here's me, and I was on Facebook for, oh my God, it was 2 hours. I didn't even realize. And just write it all down as to how you spend your time, because then you can change it. And as it relates to food, I mean, I think there's over 200 food decisions a day. It's probably more than that, but there's 200 food decisions going on in our head, what to have, what not to have, what to have in the house. Now I smell something. I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and talk about 200 opportunities, but that's also going to be, part of your day. So it really will be navigating that too. So I like that. Talk a little bit about your free gift before we get wrap things up here.
Yes. Well, I'd like to offer all the viewers a free copy of my book. I hope you can't hear my phone ringing in the background. I forgot to unplug it, but hey, we live in the real world. The phone rings.
My cat's running around here. The cat's running around.
So yes, my book, Stop Dieting, Start Living, is available to everybody. It's on my website. They can find it at elliesavoy.com.
I'll put that in the email for today, yep. So they'll have all that info.
Great. And so you just put your name and email in, and it'd be a way for us to, have a conversation. I send out some interesting things, certainly not in your face every 5 minutes sending emails, so don't worry about that. But it's the full version of my book, and it's in a PDF format. But of course, if somebody wants to get the hard copy, that's available too, but it's on Amazon. So I'm here to help and support in any way possible. But the book, it's my philosophy, because it's based on those 5 P's.
Right.
So it's thought provoking. It's there's a lot of metaphors in there, a lot of easy ways to relate, and I've got lots of good reviews. So I hope your viewers will get some good benefits out of it.
I think they will. That's a very generous gift. Thank you. I love metaphors. I'm all over metaphors because if I can frame it up in my head outside of food or my body image or whatever I'm dealing with, I like, because it makes some sense, so I like metaphoric. I'm excited for that. That's a very generous give on your part too. And I would really love for the viewers to, even after you're finished watching this, comment on some of the things that you found interesting today, the one nugget that you took away from today, that's going to help you move in the direction of the life that you're looking to live. Yeah, because you deserve that big, bold, happy life. Let's
absolutely.
Yeah, we need to get going, right? Let's go. Yeah. Time's flying. I look at it all the time, and I say it all the time, and I am taking that to heart and really wanting to know what I want to do with this time that I have here. I think that's important. We find out what it is that we're meant to give and give it. Start giving it, because the receiving part of it will just happen, because it's going to be organic in that way. Ellie, you were such a pleasure.
Oh gosh, I know. I wish we could talk all day, but I know that there's a certain amount of time here. But yeah. I hope it's been helpful to the viewers. I've just so enjoyed the conversation with you, Lucia. You're just a wonderful host.
Oh, you're
sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pay you later. No, I'm kidding.
No fee.
I'm kidding. Very sweet. You're very sweet, and I thank you, because I know that we're all on the same mission with each other to just help one person go one more step into their life. That's what I'm appreciating about the people in my life. So I appreciate that you were that person for us today. So thank you so much. And you have a wonderful, and you're East Coast, aren't you?
Yes.
East Coast, and I'm from England, and I enjoyed your accent. I always love that too. So thank you for everything today, Ellie, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. Right. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and there'll be more, so stay tuned. Yes, and don't forget, let us know what you learned today, because I'll be real curious, and we'd like to know what resonated with you. So have a great day. Bye-bye.